guys, Rick Shaw here on the 28th of October 2021, and we're having kind of a little sticky day. Getting a walk, my first walk. I got pretty dang sweaty. Then we got some cloud cover and looked like it was going to rain. Now it's clearing up again. I'm sure it's going to rain again today. I seen down in hey, good morning, Igne. There's our buddy Igne. But I see they're really getting flooded good down in Davao City. I was there regular years. That floods all the time. I was just walking distance to work, maybe 500 feet from the building or so, a little bit more, and I'd be walking through water to get to work. It's just right up above sea level, not much, and that's just how it gets down there. And when they start getting the ground saturated and it just keeps raining, that's what you're going to get. Once you get away from that town and you get up on the hill a little bit, it's not so bad. The roads there are kind of like in Tennessee. They're like chert roads when you get out. And even in the rain, heavy rains, I mean, you'll see people motorcycle riding, and they're not slowing down for the corners. So the roads are pretty solid, and they're not super slippery or anything. So that's pretty cool. But I'm going to put a picture in here. I'll try to put it in while I'm talking about this, if anyone could tell me what this bug is. But last night I was watching a movie. It was a movie about a train, and it's like it's all the people in the world. The world was frozen and stuff. And I'll have to get the name of it. Maybe I'll put it in the description. It was terrible. I mean, I kept watching because I was expecting it to get better. It was one of them kind of movies. I kept waiting and waiting for it to get better, and then down at the end of it, it was just incredibly stupid. So total waste of time on that one. But these bugs, I'm watching that movie, and this dang thing bit me in the arm, and it was the same as like having a bee sting. I mean, it really nailed me right on my forearm, and I smacked it and put it on the table, took the pictures of it, but I was bleeding. I mean, it took a chunk out to where I was bleeding. So I thought, oh, this is not good. So I went around with the flashlight, turned all the lights out, TV out, went around with a flashlight looking for more. I don't see that they fly, but I found another one just like it over by the coffee machine. And man, I sure don't want these things in the house. It's just like you don't want a bee or a wasp in your house. But it burnt for a little while. I mean, this thing stung me. It was like a bee sting. I would say it would be just like a bee sting. And I've been stung by bees quite a few times, and it's about the same. But nasty little booger. But I killed two of them in the house, and I have no idea what they are. I took the picture and tried to do it on this online thingy that when you have a picture, they can find something similar or tell you what it is. I couldn't find anything on it, maybe because I squished them. And it wasn't a good picture of it, but nasty little bug here in the Philippines. Been watching the news. They're really chatting at old Biden. It's just really something what's going on. But what they're doing here, I think what's happening now is we're working on the third seal. Just what's going on. They're just going to smash the money so much that you won't even have enough to buy food, and they're just going to just devalue everything and take all your wealth because they want it all. They want it all, and I'm starting to think they want you might say, pushing up daisies. Is what I think is what the ultimate plan is. As many as they can. And there's a lot of stuff. I have some stuff on the Telegraph. I can't put anywhere else. I can't put it here. I even had a video here where I missed a day or something because I put something in the link, and they didn't kick me off, but they locked the video out just because it was in the link. And then I guess if I take that link out, they're going to let it go back up. So this is all censorship. It was some doctor from Germany talking about his thoughts on this, and he was pretty graphic about what he thought. And it just, I was interested in it. I thought you guys would be too, so I put it on there. So they don't want this stuff out. They don't want anything but their narrative going. Morning, Tatai. That's Ignace's dad over there. We went out by the ocean with those guys here a while back. If we do that again, I hope things are gonna open up here. There's not much we can do other than sit back and observe. But you look around this area, a lot of Filipinos. They're the ones I talk to anyway. Like the guy up the store. We started going to a new store. He seems like a pretty cool dude, and he's like, nah, it's all baloney. I asked him if he was going to do the job, and he was like, that's what. So, you know, there's a lot of folks like that. And then a couple of the other looked like his sons that were working there. I don't know if his sons or not. I didn't ask, but they looked very similar, the two boys, and they were like, no, no way. So that's just 3 people I talked to yesterday, and it seems to be the way it goes. You walk down the street. When I was on the street, it was about 50-50 for, you know, this thing, and it was about 90-10 where it was here. You know, they were making the motions is what they were doing. There's my boys. They got to run, these guys. But we got out last night and was trucking around on the motorcycle quite a bit. They like to ride. It was a nice, cool evening. We didn't need any kind of jacket or anything. It was just kind of neutral towards the cool side. And the kids love to, you know, they are always hounding to go for a ride on the motorcycle. They like the bikes too, and they like to walk. They've been hounding me for the last hour to walk. But okay, make sure you put that down in the grass so nobody runs it over. All right, don't. It's just a piece of concrete, and don't put it in the road where a motorcycle's going to hit it. Okay? We hit a rock the other night. I was actually moving over to keep from hitting a frog, and I hit a good-sized rock. So we stopped, and we had a rock throwing contest, throwing all the rocks out of the road. The dudes that are working on the wall left rebar in the road. They've got rock all over. You probably can't see that really good, but right there's a big sand thing and stuff laying right in the road. So when we come around the corner, it was like, whoa, you know, all of a sudden we're in debris, and they just leave it there. You know, this is a thoroughfare. You're not supposed to block the thoroughfare. If you're done working, push the stuff over to the side. And I'm not going to move that rebar, but you're going down the road on a motorcycle and you hit, you know, there's 25 bars of half-inch rebar there. You hit that with your motorcycle, there's a good chance you're going to fall down. You know, it's going to roll and you're going to slip out from under you. So, you know, I don't think that's good. We did have water. We had a lot of water this morning. I mean, it was a surprising amount. The pressure, I mean, upstairs. I mean, I had a great shower, and the more pressure there is, the quicker I can get a shower. The water was nice and hot. I don't know why they just can't keep it going all the time. I am going to talk when I go to pay the bill. I'll pay the bill myself this coming month, and I'm going to talk to them and say, hey, what is this? If you want, give me a key. You know, give me a dang key. I'll go open up a valve if I have to, and I'll even sit there and wait. You know, I know the one day the dude filled it. He didn't want to stay. He opened up the valve, he locked the door, and he took off. Well, guess what? It started coming out the overflow quite a bit. Who's paying for that? Of course we are. But you know, that wasn't cool. That wasn't cool at all. I did see somebody put in the comments on these floats, and I know these floats aren't that much money to get an automatic system put in there, and probably not even that much to get somebody out to do the work. It shouldn't be too much. I know if they got a piece of pipe going into a tank, I've been inside these tanks before, and every single one of them, they have a thread or a tap that they can get to. So, and that pipe going up into there, that's a 4-inch pipe. So it shouldn't take too long to push that water up there. Plus their pumps. I glanced inside the pump house. They not only have the water pressure from the city where they're getting the water from, but they also have a pump and the electricity going into that to run it. And it's a pretty big motor. It's an old one, But you know, the older motors were bigger. A new 70 horsepower motor, you know, is half the size of an old, you know, 25 horsepower motor. They're just, it's just the way it goes now. They're coming up with better technology on these motors. You can tell by all these electric buggies. I'm glad there's not so many of those around here. I was getting sick of it in Carmona, you know, because they're so slow. And there was talk about making them register and have licenses for them, which that'll get a lot of them off the road. We do know our little teacher girl. She had one, and you know, her batteries went out on it. She had it for 3 years, and the batteries had cooked. You know, so where's those batteries going to go? You know, what's the deal on that? And those batteries aren't even designed for constant discharge. Even if you get a marine battery, they're not designed for it. You know, if they go to the new battery technology, but all these cheap ones they sell here, and they are cheap, guys, they're just lead acid batteries. And that's, you know, they're, like I say, they're not designed. If you put them in a car, I had an interstate battery that big lead acid, and they had this stuff, I think it was called X29 or something, that they sold. J.C. Whitney had it, and I bought a lot of stuff from those guys. And they had the stuff, and put a little bit of this in the batteries. I had that battery, oh, it was way over 10 years. It was a big interstate. When I bought it, it was the biggest interstate battery that they sold in that particular store. And back then it was like $50 for this thing. So I went ahead and bought it, and a big, heavy, nasty battery. And I moved that around from car to car, and it just never wore out. You know, it was a real high cold cranking up battery, and being in the Northeast, you got to have that. And some of the cars, one of the trucks I had actually had when I got it, it had a engine oil heater and a block heater. It had 3 plugs on the front of it to plug it in at night. You know, that was really something. Then I had that diesel. You know, a lot of diesels, you just crank them over, like on the bulldozer with the pony motor, and that's your starter and all that stuff. But I had a diesel. It had glow plugs, and sometimes in the winter, I would come out, and that would when you turn the glow plugs on, there'd be like a little red light on, showing that the glow plugs were being heated. And when it turned green, that's when you cranked it. And if you cranked it and it didn't start, and you kicked it off, you'd have to wait for them plugs to heat up, glow plugs to heat up again. Kind of like in a little pre-chamber. And that thing in some very freezing, where I was going was like up on a hill above the river, so it was always windy in there, and no matter what the temperature was, it was always colder there. And that's just the deal with that thing. But that thing always started. I have to say one thing about that old, it was an Oldsmobile custom cruiser with the way back seats facing the wrong way. Well, actually, I think the right way. I think my car's got them facing the wrong way now. But that was a great buggy. That one was like a special edition. My uncle actually ordered it because most of them just had the tailgate door on it. Well, he custom ordered this thing with the Chevy rear door. It either opened flat down or it opened like a door, you know, like a barn door. So that was unique because I saw lots of them and none of them had that except mine. Plus it had an electric window in the back so you can open it up. But that car, you never wanted to open up the back window, because as soon as you did, all that diesel exhaust was coming inside the car. You had to keep that closed. And I actually, the seals on it were bad because there was no rim, there was no trim around the glass. And I went to, it was another, I think it was J.C. Whitney, and I got a brand new seal. I actually siliconed it and then pushed the seal in and made sure that was good and sealed up in the back. And they had a couple of minor rust holes. I just took, you know, the Bondo fiberglass stuff and just sloshed it all through, and then pushed the weave into that, and then painted over the top just to seal it up, just on the inside, because I didn't want any of that diesel getting in there. When I first got it and driving it home, I was actually having to drive with, it was cold and it was pouring down rain. It was so bad in there, I had to, and it was smoky, you know, where you couldn't see. I had to open up all the windows, and all the electric windows in that worked. That's what was nice about that one. When my uncle got it, he ran a window factory, and he did pretty good, plus he apartment buildings and things like that. And he wanted to get a good car. He wanted that door on it so that he could get close if he was loading stuff, if they had to make a delivery or haul people or anything like that. There's that rebar, guys, that they just leave out kind of in the road there. We kicked a bunch of these rocks out of the way because they had rocks all over in here. But you know, he ordered that dang thing, and that was I ran that thing for years. I loved that car. Not high horsepower, but it went. I mean, you hit the gas, it moved out pretty good, and it cruised on the highway just like, I swear I was getting 35 miles to the gallon in that big buggy. And it was really cool. I always loved it if you had a tailgater. It was just really cool because all you had to do was pull it down into second gear and floor it. You wouldn't gain no speed. It would just kick the RPMs way up in the motor and billow smoke. And then what the people would do behind you, one thing you shouldn't do, when it's spitting that raw diesel fuel out the exhaust and it's a mist, it just throws out like a mist. Well, of course they turn their wiper on, and as soon as that alcohol hits it, it just smears like a white cream on their windshields, and they're backing off. They have to stop and clean their windows off because the wipers won't do it. Wipers just make it worse, especially with the wishy-washy. So that was a fun car. That was a really cool car. I had people coming up to me at lights, man, there's something wrong with your motor, dude. One dude, he told me, I pulled up into a little convenience store one day, and there was a couple of black fellas standing there, dressed real nice. These guys, I'd seen them in the neighborhood before, and right after I got the car, I pulled up in there, and oh man, dude, that car's bad. And I'm like, no, it's not bad, it's good. No, man, it's bad. Listen to it. I said, no, it's a diesel. And the guy didn't even know what a diesel was. I said, the same kind of motor in the trucks. So that's when that vehicle got the nickname. They named it, oh, you mean like a gumball machine. Them guys all called me Mr. Gumball from then on. They're pretty cool guys. They were construction guys too. I never worked with them in any of the crews or anything, but they were, I believe they were carpenters. But that sun, I can feel it. It's pretty hot sun right now. But look at this beautiful painting the good Lord give us today. Look at that. See how those clouds are moving pretty quick. Now what they're doing right now is they're moving well, I guess that's southwest. Let's see. No, it's moving northwest, excuse me. They're moving northwest. That's west over there. That's where the sun goes down, and there's where the sun goes up. So we've been keeping an eye on the clouds, and it's just been they're moving quickly. These storms that are all around, they're not really too much on the Philippines other than down in Mindanao, but it's just drawing the air currents in. And since I've been here in the last 2 weeks, I'd say, every day the clouds are going in different directions. These lower clouds, the upper clouds don't seem to budge too much, but these lower ones are they're changing direction in the same day. I think I put it on a video here a while back where they were heading to the east, and then later on that evening when I went out, they were heading to the west. So, come on, buddy. Mom was hanging it up, slowing down a little bit, but there's that big dog. He's locked in, but he's friendly. We had a dog chase us. We were riding a motorcycle, and I seen him in the light. He was in the grass, and I'm like, oh crap! And we were already like committed to pass him. And as soon as we went by him, he was like a cat. He come out and tried to get us. So I went back walking and was just going to go catch him. I'm going to catch that son of a gun and tie him to a tree or something, because he wasn't a cool dog. I had my stick and I had my mace, but when I was walking, he wouldn't let me get anywhere near close to him. He kept barking at me and looking vicious, but he wouldn't come close enough for me to get him. Now my mace sprays 20-some feet. That was when I bought that one, and it's got the orange in it, so it dyes your face and all that stuff. I got a couple cans of that. And it's not the mace that I've seen. Like if you watch Amagansett Press or any of these Watch the Watchers or anything where the young kid from Amagansett sprayed the dude right in the face, and it didn't seem to affect the guy too bad. It stopped him, but it wasn't too bad. Well, when I had this mace, when I got the first can of it, I thought I'll get it and try it. I had a couple of dudes. They wanted my money, and so I just, okay, here, I'm going to give it to you. And I reached in, I pulled the mace out, and I sprayed them both right in the face. And it was a directional. This thing they were double arm's length. Go get your slipper. Go get your slipper, Moo. They were double arm's length, and it just hit a small thing in their face. It really sprayed good.
Hold it.
And I'll tell you what, I emptied about a half a can on these guys, and then I boogied. But they were on the ground. It wasn't. They were standing there just wiping their eyes. This stuff hit them hard, and it dyed them. It has a dye in them. And when I was heading down the road, I don't like to call the cops on anyone because you might get shot. You know, watch some of these police encounter videos that they have. You know, where the cops don't even know the laws. They're just, you know, like the one guy said on the video, they're dumber than a bag of hammers.
We're going that way.
Yeah, look at all this stuff out in the road. They just leave. They don't care. They just leave it out in the road, and we drive this, so we have to just adjust our route. But I watch some of those when after the kids go to bed. I'll put them up on the big TV and watch a string of those ones. And a lot of cops are getting out of control. If you look at them, you know, there's lawsuits that they get paid. One guy got $50,000 settlement for it, and he wouldn't. He still left this video up. You know, they arrested the guy for doing something that's legal. You're allowed to go around in public with your camera and film anything. And he was filming, I think it was a post office, and the police manhandled him, grabbed his camera, pushed him around. You know, that's uncalled for. You know, that's really uncalled for. The little town that I lived in, I knew all the cops when I had the shop. If the cops came in for any kind of firearms work, repairs mostly, site changes, whatever, extractors, things like that, I never charged them for the labor, just for the part. And I charged them for the part what I paid for it. And then, of course, I had to put sales tax. That's mandatory. But that's how I did it with those guys. And most of those guys were really cool. The neighbor girl lived behind us. The one deputy was her brother. And I got to be pretty good friends with him. And he was a mellow guy. If he seen kids drinking beer or something, you know, he'd say, hey, you just got to get out of here. You know, he wasn't out to bust anybody or anything like that. And one time I had another cop. He was like the chief. And my son, you know, he was starting to get into the dope and stuff. So I had, I called him up, told him what this deal was. So, okay, we'll scare him. And he came over, popped him with all the stuff, and it was nothing. There's going to be no report or nothing like that. You know, he put his uniform and all that, came in his car, but had him handcuffed to the chair. Tried to scare him straight, you might say. Didn't work. You know, he got into dope for a while there, but he's cleared up now. I'm really glad of that. But that was all, I believe, to tell you the truth, from the divorce. You know, the mom thinks that such a wonderful mother. Well, you don't abandon your family. Now she's with the other fella. That's daddy to my daughter now, and you know, that's not the way that goes. But it's a shame. I personally like it here. I heard some stuff on divorce in the Philippines, and I know it's not allowed. They do annulments and stuff like that. I don't think any of that should be allowed. If you marry somebody, you're supposed to marry them till the end of your days. That's just how that's supposed to be. I'm old school that way. You know, if it's, you know, I've had, my daughter had said, because her and her husband weren't getting along, that's why she left him. Not because he ran around or anything, just because they weren't getting along. Well, it takes two not to get along, you know, and to argue and fuss. And it takes a toll on the kids. It absolutely ruins them, because then they'll do it. Because look what happened to my daughter. You know, she's doing it. You know, she left her guy and is with another guy. And it's a shame, you know. My wife, when the thing was going down, I never signed a thing, ever. Never sign anything, and it was just really stupid. But I am not believing how they do when a guy gets divorced, that he's got to pay and pay and pay. That, why is that? Women are so independent and all that kind of stuff. What do they need that for? But boy, they do. And then when they need more money, they go back to court, and the court raises it for them every time. You know, so it's not a good deal for a guy. I'm actually to the point where here it's okay, but in the States, I tell people it's a bad idea. If I were young again, I wouldn't get married. I just wouldn't if I was young, living in the States or in a Western country. Now here, my wife and I, we have our tiffs just like everybody else, but we're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. She's not going anywhere, and that's how it's supposed to be. And she waited till she was old enough to get married, and good-looking girl. She had some suitors, but she just didn't want to marry any of them. And then I come along, and we got married, and it's a good deal. We got some beautiful babies. I love these babies. She loves her babies. We have a little bit of a difference on how we want them raised and all that. Me, if a kid's bad, I'll give him a whack, and then that's over. I don't ever bring that up again. But women will have a tendency to bring things up from 15 years ago. That's just the way it goes. Can't even remember half the stuff. But and hollering, just constant hollering at the kids. I don't think that's that makes them, turns them into a blinky, I call it. I had one buddy. They had one child, boy, and that's what I nicknamed him. I called him Blinky, and they never knew why. Probably would have got mad at me. But he would always holler at that kid. And then when we went to picnics and stuff, when they'd come over, even the mom was always hollering at the kid, calling him stupid and everything like that. And that kid, he was Blinky. He was scared of his own shadow. He's an adult now. He's probably, hey, watch out, guys, motorbike. He's almost 40. And when I was back in town, I seen him, and he's just a busboy in a cheap restaurant making nothing. He just never amounted to a whole lot. And I truly think you have to build your kids up. Don't tear them down. This stuff where you're tearing them down and telling them they're stupid, you don't do that. Kids are gonna do stuff. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna reach that one. But you have to build them up. They're little yous. You know what I mean? They're your babies. You want the best for them. And I can't understand some people that are bad, like little Blinky. I felt bad for him. I saw him in the restaurant. He remembered me. He smiled at me, but he never came over and talked or anything. He's shy, a real shy kid. And they made him that way. And that's a royal shame. It's just to the extreme, and I really hate to see that. But the sun's out, but I can still feel the heat on my back, even though it's coming through the clouds. Getting pretty sweaty again. Maddie's still carrying his rock. He got a piece of concrete he's been dragging around since we started walking. He's a funny guy. This big one?
Yeah.
Okay, watch for bugs on it. All right, there's a nice big leaf for you. I like how these guys, you'll see them take a banana leaf and make hats out of them here for the sun. A lot of guys, you'll see most of the construction guys got hats. They wear hoodies too and long sleeve shirts. They don't want to be too much in the sun. But here's our foreman coming. Hey, fellas. How you doing today? All right. But yeah, he's the one, Ramrod, he's the one making sure everybody's there. But he's pretty good with his guys. He's not a hard guy. I've watched him for a while. He's not here every day, but even when he's not here, these guys, they're just always working. You don't see them dilly-dallying. I did watch that thing, I mentioned it in the last video, about the rebar up there, how they do it. And according to the Filipino National Code, it's not being done properly. When you put these things around these uprights, they're not just to be bent over on a 90 to meet with the other one and then tied up with wire. They're actually supposed to be brought around the corner and then bent down in, so they're parallel to each other. So it looks like a 45 to me. They gave a different dimension, but it looked like a 45 after it makes the turn, and that's that helps it from coming apart. It'll fight itself. Whereas if you just put them like that. And then the other thing too, now these guys, they run their uprights pretty much all the way up, but they showed on there, and they do it here where it's kind of wedged. They have the uprights coming up, and when they tie the new one in, they wedge it a little bit, and that's not supposed to be done either. That's wrong. They had a thing where it's got to go so many feet down into the previous rebar that you're tying into. It's got to have little angles put in it, you know, on both of them, the one coming up and the one going down. But this is what I was looking at. I'll show you this. So they tied these in. They just came around the corner, and they just came around the corner here and then tied it together. That's supposed to be bent in like this, and then this one's supposed to come over and bend in like that, according to the Philippine code. And that's and these guys, you know, these people who write these codes, you know, we had codes we had to follow when I was in construction and working with carpenters and plumbers and everything, or you got problems. And the code book, the NEC that I had to deal with, that changes almost every couple of years. You know, they find a problem and they fix it. You know, some of the stuff they do I think is wrong, like with all this arc flash and stuff. When arc flash first came out, it was nothing but trouble. They were calling us because it was always tripping, and I said, hey, you know, I can't do anything but go down to the hardware store, get some breakers, take them out. Because when they first come out, now I think they're a lot better, but when they first come out, they didn't work. They were tripping. They were tripping if it got moist in the air, I think. They were just really crappy. You know, it was like with GFIs. GFIs wear out. They absolutely 100% will wear out after time. I see a lot of people, just to turn the power off, they'll use that switch, they'll trip it. It's a test switch. Well, you don't want to keep tripping them because they go. You know, there's a little arc in there. But when I did my panels, I bought what was called, and I think this is the best system you could ever have. I bought a Gunsmithing panel, and it had fuses, because fuses are a lot faster than a breaker. Yeah. Yeah, Dorothy's watching it right now. I let them put the TV on today because they're not playing too much outside today. Give them a break. But yeah, I had the Gunsmithing panel, and it had little fuses in there that popped. And then it has a little holder down on the bottom to hold a bunch of extra fuses. It's like a breaker, you know, there's 10, 15, 20 amp ones, 30 amp ones, like that. So that's how I did my panel, and that's super fast to cut the power. Whereas breakers are a lot slower, even the fast ones. And fuses too. If you got a big motor that you're like for a well pump or something, you can put a slow blow one in there, so it can take a big draw higher than what it's supposed to. Because sometimes motors, as they get old, will draw more than their rating. So you have to be careful of that. And a lot of people where I lived, one fella that was popping, he was popping breakers on his well. That's 180 foot deep. And it was an old one, and he didn't want to pull it out to change it until it went bad. But he was popping breakers, so he wanted to put in it was a 30 amp, 2-pole 30 amp, and then it was a long run from the house too. You know, it was well over 100 feet from the house, plus 180 feet down, so you got line drop. And he only had like number 10s in there, so that was a problem. That should have been heavier wire. But that's what we did for him. I wound up taking that out of the panel. I mounted him a little disconnect beside the panel with a pair of fuses in there, some slow blow fuses, and he never had a problem after that. And so that was separate. Plus we had a disconnect out by the well. He didn't have one, and that was the code, but him and his buddies did it. And I said, look, you have to go all the way back. If there's a problem, somebody's getting lit up, you got to go all the way back to the house, down in your basement, and fix that. You need a disconnect right here, and where the line come in. Plus we did change his wire too. We put him a heavier wire in just up to that disconnect. And I said, look, when you change it to the new well pump, then, you know, tie the wire to that and go with the heavier wire. So he was like, okay, cool. He wanted it done right. Yeah, the guy, and he wasn't cheap. He paid me what I asked and helped. So that was a cool job. But here, a lot of these people, they learn on the job, and they start. If somebody likes them, they make them a boss their second week of work, and they run things. Like the plumber here, who had to put my Insta-Hot way up high because it was gravity fed. Well, but our water is gravity because there's not enough pressure for it to go upstairs. But I had water. I had a good bit of water this morning, got the dishes done. We did get our cups. My wife gives all these guys that come around. If they come around, they want a cup of coffee, we give it to them. We give them a cup of coffee, and we buy plenty of that. It's just the Nescafe stuff, and but we were using cups, and they were getting broke. I mean, just constantly broke and chipped and busted and everything. The ceramic cups, and they're silica now, so once they break, I pitch them. And then she started using our cups. I had a nice set in there, and one of those got broke, so I ordered that last month. I ordered from Lazada these. They're metal cups with the ceramic coating on them, and they're not. It was the reason why I bought from them is it said it's a Filipino company, made in the Philippines, blah blah blah, and shipped out of Manila. It took forever because of the delivery company, and they're not a really good. They weren't done right. Where the handles are in down on the bottom, most of that enamel's cracked and already rusting in there. So I don't think they're going to hold up. I have a set of metal plates and cups, like camping gear that my mother gave me, that she got in the 50s. And there's no rust on any of those, except where my wife dropped them and chipped some of the stuff off. But those are the ones we use all the time. I like that nice big plate. And they're just super nice plates, and I got all the cups too, but I don't want to get those all banged up and chopped up either. You know, it was crazy. Some of that stuff I know is worth a lot. I had a Franklin Mint turn of the century mug collection years ago, and I thought, boy, I really like that. I always collected coffee cups. If I went somewhere, was on a job, or we were taking a trip somewhere, I'd get a coffee cup. Sometimes from the restaurant. I'd say, hey man, this you got your name on the restaurant. And some have their address and hey, can I buy one of these off you? 9 times out of 10, they'd give me one. You know what I mean? I had Denny's ones. I had a bunch of them. But that was my souvenirs. And I had 350, 360 cups at one time. And I bought this Franklin Mint turn of the century mug collection. It was all companies that were around at the turn of the century. You know, Bon Ami soap and one of the little candies company. Yeah, but there was 25 of them all together, and then they sent you a rack. Well, right after I bought it, there was it was made in Japan. They had gold rims. They were beautiful, and the silk screening on the cups was absolutely beautiful, very detailed. Well, the plant had an explosion, and there were going to be no more cups. So they sent you 2 every other month in a box. And I got a hold of the company and said, look, I'd like to get the rest of the cups. And they said, well, no, you can just send yours back. And I said, no, did they make all just one cup this month and then another cup? No. They make all the cups every month. And I said, as people send them back, can you send them to me? And the guy was like, yeah, but it could take a long time. And I said, doesn't matter. I'll take them, and I'll even pay you for the next, 6 cups. And they're like, okay, sure. 3.5 years later, I got my last cup in the rack. Well, most of the people sent those back, so there weren't many. And then I had that set of cups, and there was a lady, the realtor lady was at the house when I was leaving to come here. And she knew those. She knew her collectibles. And she was like, hey, I could sell that for you. And I think she put it on Craigslist or something. And I don't know what she made on it. I didn't care. But I got $5,600. And I paid $1,350 for 2 of them. And then the rack came free. And none of them were chipped. I had all the original paperwork. Still had the boxes. I had them hanging at the one house, but when I moved, I never hung them again because I didn't want them getting busted. But that helped moving here. Another thing I had too that now I didn't sell it though. I gave it to my sister instead of selling it because it just fit perfect in her house. Was this? It was a Steinman hutch, and this thing was in beautiful shape. I got it at a yard sale. I went to this yard sale, and I told the lady I'd like to get this, that, and the other, and she said, well, do you want any of this other stuff? And I said, well, I'd like to have, I'd tell you the truth, I'd like to have it all, but I got like $100. And she's, come back at 5 o'clock. We're done at 5. Come back at 5. Whatever's here, you can have. And then when I was there, I said, look, lady, I got $100, but I got to make sure I got gas to go back and forth to work. And how much you need for gas? I said, well, I ride the bike, so $5 will do me, get me through the rest, next week. And she's like, cool. So she gave me all that stuff, and then her son came over with a trailer to bring it all to my place, which was really cool. And they didn't charge me for gas, wouldn't take any money for gas. It was a older couple where the man across the street, his wife died, and the lady across the street, they'd been neighbors for 40 years. Her man died, and they wound up getting married and moving into his house. So she was getting rid of all her stuff. They didn't need it. You know, they kind of split their stuff up. Plus, he brought stuff over to the yard sale, and I got this hutch. Steinman had the paper on the back, and my insurance man was at the house one day, and he come out and told me, he says, "Hey, I redo furniture. You know, that's a 1952 Steinman." And I'm like, I think you're right. And I know I'm right. He goes, I know, because in 52 it was the only year they had the locks on them. You know, they stopped doing the locks after that, and they didn't have this model in 51. And he was a refinisher of this furniture, and he wanted to buy it. He was right there. He says, "Look, I'll give you $3,800 for it right now." You know, and I got the thing for a few bucks. But it was so nice, and my sister had this beautiful dining room table that matched the wood. It was walnut, and the only thing that wasn't walnut was the bottom of the drawers, and the drawers had the newspaper was the lining. It had the old newspaper that they like shellacked into it. That was this company's trademark. And so when I left to come here, I didn't want to sell it. I would have been nice to have the money, but my sister, she still has it, and she'll probably never get rid of it. I mean, it went into her dining room and just fit perfectly. So, and it was big enough to put big plates in. Very nice piece of furniture. So that was a cool thing. But I'm gonna let you go. We're looking. It's going to rain now. You can see the clouds the way they come here. But who knows? In a half an hour, it could be baking sunlight again. It's been doing this now for the last week. You know, this could clear out. Like I say, the other day when I did the one video, I couldn't put it up. My son and I were baking in the sun with just a few scattered clouds, and 15 minutes later it was worse than this and just pouring. And it poured for I don't know, an hour and a half, and I couldn't put the video up because you could hear me, but it was like in the background. And I'm trying to do the better audio. I got these Boya mics. This guy right here, I think these are the best mics. There's no power supply needed for it. I had one that had to have a power supply, and you had to put a battery in it. And then another one I had, a USB would plug it in and charge the battery. And the sound wasn't, it was like I was, in a studio when it was making my voice weird. And then when I got this one, I had some cheaper ones that weren't really good. Some of the videos I didn't put out because I didn't like them. And some of them they sent me had 3 hatches on where it plugs in. This camera only takes 2. Cell phones takes 3. I have some of them. I know when people come over, like if Tim comes over or Wes, anybody wants any of them, I think I got 6 or 7 of them, because they said they were 2, and then when I got them, they were 3. So they're not usable. I have an adapter, and I'll keep a couple of them. I have a couple of them in my bag for emergency. Then I could put the adapter on, but that's another connection. And the more connections you got with these mics, you start picking up interference and stuff. When I had the adapter on, if I got close to the TV, it would start getting a hum in there. A little hum. You could just barely notice it, but the closer you got to the TV, the louder it got. So, and that was our other TV when we had the small Samsung. But so I don't like to have a lot of connections. This thing's got a nice enough wire. Just hook it on the glass. I used to hook it in my beard. I'll be doing that again. The beard's getting long. It'll be 4 months of the beard on the 4th. Let's see, 4th of July, August, September, October, November. So November 4th will be 4 months. And so by Christmas it ought to be pretty ho, 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 you know. But I like it. I like the beard. Let my hair get a little bit longer. I like old Tropical Tim. I don't think he's cut his hair since he's been here. It gets pretty long. But through the years, I kept it short, especially when I had the shop, because I didn't want to get anything caught. You know, when you're working on lathes and milling machines, you don't even want sleeves. You know, you roll your sleeves up. I didn't even like long ones in case if you got your arm in there, because those machines don't stop for metal. They're not going to stop for your arm. And I do know a young fella. He was working on his lathe, and this was a big thing in the paper, and his wife found him. He was running his lathe, and he looked down, and he had something around his neck, and it got caught into the lathe, and it happens in the blink of an eye, and the thing was spinning. It was, when I went over there months later, after the funeral, the lathe was set for 2,700 RPM, so that sucked his head right into the chuck, and it just killed him. It killed him right there. So that was a royal shame. So you got to be real careful of that stuff. You know, I always think of that. You know, when you're working with machinery and stuff. I see some people are so cavalier about it. I went into a shop, this old-time gunsmith. I wanted to go see him because he was getting ready to, he was selling some of his stuff. He was going to be done with his shop. His health was starting to go. But he was still making rifles and doing things. And long floppy sleeves, big floppy shirts and stuff, and he's leaning right over his work because he couldn't see with his little like glasses that went on the end of his nose to see what he was doing. And I was thinking, man, this guy's been doing this for 40, 50 years, and he's lucky he didn't get caught up and messed up. But I got some equipment off of him, some old-timey tools, because a lot of the fellas in that area, you start getting up into these old, you know, in West Virginia, Kentucky, Western Pennsylvania, and these areas there where I was getting a lot of work from. I did mail order work too. They have a gun that gets passed down from generations. They pass them down. I had one fella bring in a gun that was way over 100 years old, and he wanted it re-blued and redone. And I said, look, I appraise firearms also. I went to school for it. There's some value in this gun if you just leave it the way it is. And he said, no, I want it cleaned up. I want to give it to my son, and I don't want it all old and beat up. I want it to look new. And I said, sure, I'll do. You know, we did a crowning on it. I re-blued it. I refinished the wood. We replaced the trigger that was getting worn out. I was able to get parts and stuff like that, but I had him sign a paper saying that, you know, me doing the work, he's relieving me of any liability from taking the value from it. Because as soon as that thing got blued, you know, now it's only valued as a shooter. It wasn't valued as a collector's. And I've seen collectors with guns that were pretty war, and it was prized possessions. You know, you don't want them. I know a guy that had a Brown Bess. You know, he was from Western Pennsylvania, and he picked it up from some lady. I picked up a couple guns one time in a lady's basement. They were all wrapped in cosmoline, and you know, she says, just take them out of here. And I said, ma'am, I took them home. I took them out. I cleaned them up, and they're worth, you know, I'm looking in my book, just one. I can't find a set. This was a match set. And I said, just one in this condition went for $16,000. You know, book value was $16,000, and they sell for that. And she's like, look, my kids will do nothing, and the grandkids will fight over them. Just count your lucky stars and keep them. And they were 28 gauge bird guns, pigeon guns. They were the most beautiful guns. When you closed the action, they were break top. When you closed the action, you couldn't see the seam of the metal. This company, Purdy, and these things weren't used. Her husband brought them back from France when he came. He had them shipped over, and she said he never used them. They came wrapped up in that cosmoline, and he checked them when he got home, and he wrapped them up. And then she said after he passed away, I didn't know what happened to them, and they wound up in the basement behind a water heater. But they were no damage or anything. The wood was still perfect. There was no rust anywhere on them. And when I took them out and cleaned them up, I was actually beholding and had my hands on two of the finest firearms I've ever seen in my life. I was pretty good at what I did. I don't think I could have done a good job, as good a job as these guys did. They were absolutely gorgeous, you know, and they had 4 different chokes, I guess, for the distances you're going to hunt. 28 gauge, though, hard to get. But they were absolutely most beautiful. The engraving on it was perfect. The depths of the engraving. If you look at engraving a lot of times on guns, the difference between a good job and a bad job, you won't notice. But if you know what you're looking for, it's the depth. There'll be gouges in it, because metal is, believe it or not, it's like wood. It's like when I would checker stocks. You'll get a hard spot where you got to work and not press hard, otherwise you're going to get dips and stuff. It all has to be uniform. Well, same thing happens in metal with engraving. You get hard spots and soft spots. And I went over this engraving with my magnifying glasses, and it was all the same depth. I actually had the little feelers for measuring the depths of these, and you could run that in there, a little super fine wire to do it. And I was saying that pair that I had was well worth more than $32,000, 16 a gun, because they were just too perfect. And this company Purdy that made shotguns, from when I started looking into it, they'd put one guy on a gun and he'd work until he was done. I would have loved to known which one. There was a stamp in there. I would like to known that, a little more history on what actually went on with these things, but that guy was a true craftsman. I had never, before and since, I've never seen finer firearms in my life. Even the woodwork was just absolutely perfect. The fleur-de-lis checkering on them was perfect, and I was really good at checkering. I learned when I was going through the school, and they had his name was the chief that ran that. He's probably long gone by now, but he started talking to me, and I was listening to him. A lot of guys, they weren't really listening to him, but this guy been a gunsmith since started that school in '49, and he said you're going to get hard and soft spots. So when you get the hard spots, just stop, take a breath, and work on that spot, because if you come out of that, you're going to gouge and you're going to have a dip. And he says that's going to be a difference between a passing grade and a failure if I see that. And I liked him to grade my stuff, because he would critique it, and he wouldn't just hand you a grade and tell you like the other guys, there's your grade. He would tell you why you got this grade. And nothing was ever graded there on a curve. He ran the place like a military thing, and very strict with ammunition. We used to you had to do your proof firings and all that stuff, but that was something when you came in, you gave him the ammo. He went down in the basement. He had a water barrel to shoot in, and because you do your proof loads. You have to do 2 proof loads. You keep one and the customer gets one. But when I was going there, they only needed you to build 3 firearms, 1 complete stock, everything from the ground up. Then you could assemble one. Well, actually 2. You could assemble 2. And the way it was working too, you could get somebody else to do. It didn't matter what kind of grade, because you're going to run a shop, and if you're not good at something, you can get someone else to do it. You're still producing the work out of your shop. So I had guys coming to me saying, "Hey, would you build this for me?" I had one kid that I built a 50 BMG, and he actually took me to his place. He lived out in West Virginia. I made a hell of a trip out there, and he had it for shooting at 1,000 yards. His family owned a bunch of ground out there, and we shot across a river, and just from one hill to the other, and way on the other side of the hill, you could barely see these 2 white painted sheets of 4x8 plywood, 2 of them that he had the target on. And that guy was shooting some pretty good groups. I actually shot a pretty good group. I think my group was right around a foot. But the day I was shooting, it wasn't super windy or anything. He had, going up and down the other side of the hill, he had little stringers so you could see the wind, so you could dope the wind and stuff. And he was a chubby kid. His family was pretty well to do, but he had me build that gun. Then I also, after I was out, we built him a rail gun. There was no wooden stock on this thing. This was built more like a howitzer. The way you adjusted the elevation, we had a pivot like this to up and lower the barrel, and then it slid. It also slid like this. We had adjustments on the legs to turn it a little bit this way, because they got to be perfectly level. And he was shooting little tiny groups at 1,000 yards with that. And that one, you didn't even pull a trigger on it. You didn't touch it. You had a cable that came out, and it was like a camera shutter for on a tripod. And the way you fired this thing was, it had a real light trigger on it, and through the little sideways trigger mounting we had coming off of this thing, because we had it mounted so the bolt was up, the single shot. And we did a lot of work on that bolt too to make it super tight, and everything was tight. Headspace was perfect, match chamber, everything. And that one, we had a 36-inch barrel that he had custom made, and it was heavy. It was a 2.5-inch barrel all the way from one end to the other. Plus, it was supported for the first 16 inches. It was supported in aluminum casing. And he was real touchy about it, even being in the sun. He had a big umbrella over it so it wouldn't get heated and mess anything up. And he'd measure the barrel from shot to shot, let it cool down. He was really into this stuff. But that was a really fine rifle. I talked to him years later. He still had it, and he actually sent people to make that again. But I didn't have the equipment to make it. I was able to go back to the school and use their equipment because my milling machine was a small one. It wasn't a real big one. And I did get a really nice lathe the guy gave to me that was a big one. I could have turned an engine block in it. But, after the divorce, I lost all that stuff too. And that was a shame. I had a real nice Binghamton lathe. Shame to lose all that. I wished I could get into that again. That was something I wanted to do, like for a retirement job. And but here, I don't think they're ever going to allow me to do anything like that. If I would become a citizen. But here, if you become a citizen, they want you to verbally renounce your U.S., even though you're not actually doing it. They want you to verbally renounce it, and that's a lie, and I'm not going to do it. So. But I do know some foreigners I saw on the YouTube. There's some of them that actually got it. And some people, they talk about dual citizenship. I couldn't find anything on that, not for me anyway. If anybody knows about it, let me know. But I know some people can get dual, like my kids. One of the ways that they got it is they were born here. They can get a green passport, but they also have the U.S. because I did all that too. And they're minors, so they don't have to renounce anything. So that's a good thing. They're dual, but in order for them, for their children to, as it stands today, for their children to be American citizens, just like ours, they would have to live in the United States for a minimum of 5 years and prove it on the passports. You'd have to go down and have that proven. So, that may be something that comes to pass depending on all this convict stuff that's going on, whether they spend 5 years there or not. It would be nice to be able to go back and forth. That was one thing that I was wanting to do. I can't leave here on my visa more than 6 months. I have to go back before 6 months is up. Because if I don't, I'll have to start over again. And I don't want to do that. I've got 8+ years on this. The first year you're on like a probation, but I've got 8+ years on this visa that I have, and I don't want to lose it. When I went back last time, 5.5 months later, I headed back here, and I gave it a couple weeks in case something happened with the flight, because they cancel flights all the time. So you have to be careful of that. But it would be nice to have these kids out there, spend the summer months out there. All my brothers and sisters are getting older. I lost my one sister already. Pretty much all my mom and dad and all her brothers and sisters are all gone. Some of the uncles and aunts' children, they're gone also. They're then they died in their 80s. I'm the youngest, so. But I would like to have them so they could pass it on to their kids. But who knows? It may not even be worth it down the road, because what's happening to the country? They're trying to smash the money again for this reset with this trillions of dollars worth of debt. I saw a thing on there, just when you're talking billions. If you talk millions, it's so many days. And when you're talking, then it jumps to $1 billion. It's like 32 years, if you count it in seconds. So it's a lot of money, and now they're talking trillions like it's nothing. So this has to be a plan, and they're taking, they want to take all that money. And that last time they passed this one, that's why I wasn't too happy with Trump for signing that. A lot of that money, nobody really reads it. It goes back into their pet projects and their buddies and their families, and they all got enriched off of the people. And that just was a major bone job. And that's when I was looking at him thinking, they're all in this together. That was not a good deal. That should have never been signed. But they get you crying for money. They're the ones who created the problem, and they're going to give you the solution. How ridiculous is that, guys? That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm a company delivering food to your house, and then I say, we're not delivering to you anymore. Sorry, and you can't leave. You're going to hate my guts. But you beg the government for money. You're slaves. That's all there is to it. And these guys, I'm telling you, it needs to go. All of them. I don't care who your favorite guy is. They need to get some guy who was, a regular working Joe up in there, and get out of all these stupid wars that are none of our business. And they put this stuff like with Saddam. Saddam was our buddy over there in the Middle East. He was our pal, and they threw him under the bus. And the reason why he did that, this is what I think, and let me know what you guys think. He started selling the oil. He needed money from the war he was in, so he went and robbed his neighbor. But they made up all the stuff to go after him, got the people behind it. But he was selling the oil without going through the petrodollar, the world reserve currency. That's the way the U.S. works it. If you buy oil, deal they made with OPEC back in the 70s, I believe, you had to use a dollar. So the U.S. got a cut every time somebody bought a couple million gallons. You had to go buy dollars to do it. So it kept the money pumped up. Well, he was selling with the Russian ruble and the yuan, I believe that's how you pronounce it, from China. And that's when the United States got mad. It's like gangsters. They didn't get their cut. So they went in and took him out. And that's exactly what happened, because he was our buddy over there. And when he was, before they hung him and he was at trial, I was watching this man. And, they make him the boogeyman. It's like with Gaddafi. A lot of people look up what he did for his country. He's not our, he's not in for us. He didn't like the U.S. from what they're doing. He said a lot of this stuff that's happening now was going to happen. Watch some of his speeches. I've had people saying, I hate his guts, blah, blah, blah. Well, they got you to hate him through propaganda. He did a lot of good stuff for his people. I'm not going to say what he did. Look him up. Look up what he did for his people. You got to remember, he's not a U.S. guy. He's worried about what he can do for his people, and you got to give him credit for that. You can't just hate the guy without really knowing the full story. And the U.S., when it comes to these people around the world, they put puppets in all over the place so they can get what they want, and they're all making deals. 535 of these politicians in the House and Senate, and they're all millionaires. I said this in the last video. You look at it's less than 1% of the American citizens in the country are millionaires, but it's 90-some% of the politicians. And these people are in there for 30, 40, 50 years. They're just in there forever. Well, wait a minute. Get them out. And they say, the people are voting us back in. They want us, blah, blah, blah. I'm starting to think, because of the last election, that's not the way it worked out. You look at these people over, and even with Newsom on this recall, everybody was against him. And then you look at what they're doing to bite him, and whole NASCAR things, whole football stadiums are chanting, let's go Brandon type stuff at this guy. Where are the people who voted for him? It's a small handful. It's just such a tiny handful. So, you got to wake up and look at that. I even know some libs that are starting to say, something, you might be right. I still don't, I still don't buy all your stuff, but yeah, you're probably right on that one. They're happy that it's that way, but what's to be happy with this guy? Or not really him. He's a nobody. But whoever's really running it, what's to be so happy about him? Prices on everything going up. Your dollar's devalued. Nobody's working. There's 11 million unfilled jobs in the country right now. They're not delivering stuff, and that's not because the people aren't ready to go and deliver the stuff. It's that they're holding them up. One of the things in California, they passed a thing on the trucks. If your trucks is over a few years, you can't come into the state. What the hell was that about? For clean air. All about this clean air baloney. Well, I was in LA when I was very young, and I remember it had a big hand over the city of garbage, gunk. Also Chicago, a big hand of just pollution sitting over there. Your eyes burnt. When I went there, my eyes were burning. My throat was just dry and raspy. You go there now, it's not like that. It's been cleaned up. If you go to where it has to be perfect clean, it's never going to happen. Not with the way the world runs right now, and with all this stuff going on. Look at China. They're opening up a bunch of new coal-fired places, and they're not following this deal because they know it would just smash their economy. I personally think they're going to smash it all on their own. With all these real estate places going bust, a lot of their companies are going bust. They're not making their payments on time, so they'll take care of themselves just from greed. But I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I'm really rambled on a lot of my thoughts, but I hope you guys like it. Put some comments in there. And this is Political Paul out.